Welcome to the Does This Happen to You podcast, where we explore the funny side of truth is stranger than fiction stories. Our story this week is from Oren Onken, who you'll find on medium.com, and here is my failed attempt at meritocracy. Choosing people based on merit seemed like a good idea. I have never had much luck with job interviews. The only jobs I ever got because of job interviews were jobs where they were hiring anyone with a pulse. Most of my jobs I got through connections. I knew someone who was hiring. That someone would put in a good word for me, and the next thing you know, I'd be employed. Or someone who was hiring would hear I was looking for work and give me a call. When unemployed, I went to college. Each additional college degree gave me something new to put on my resume, and with my new resume in hand, I would fail at the interview game again. I would then put out the word that I was out of work and wait for the guy who knows a guy to do his magic. During one of my breaks in employment, I went to law school. After graduating from law school, I worked lawyer jobs, all of which I got because I knew a guy. Then, one time when I was out of work, nothing happened. The guy who knows a guy was out of ideas, and although the word was out that I was out of work, nobody called. In desperation, I hung out my shingle and started a law practice. For a while, I was one man with a desk, a phone, and a shelf full of law books. Yes, I'm so old I remember law books. After a slow start, things picked up, and I needed office help in the form of a legal assistant. I didn't have a human relations department. I didn't know squat about hiring or interviewing people, but it crossed my mind that if I wanted to get the best person, I should advertise, interview, and then select the most qualified and talented person who applied. It wasn't the way I got jobs, but if it didn't work, why did so many people do it? It even crossed my mind that all those employers who had hired me because of the guy who knows a guy might have found a better employee if they had done interviews. At the time, there was a lot of talk about merit-based hiring and promotion. That sounded good to me. I would forego hiring based on which of my friends was unemployed and hire based on merit. It is non-discriminatory. It puts everyone, including disadvantaged populations, on an equal footing. It is fair, moral, and American. I didn't have any experience in merit-based hiring, either as an employee or an employer, but how hard could it be? I owned and managed a law practice. Most people can't do that, so I must have merit, and people like me, with merit, can recognize it in others, right? I identified the experience I wanted my assistant to have. I downloaded a proofreading test from the internet and made a list of interview questions. I'd been asked by the employers who interviewed me and didn't hire me. The advertisement ran, and soon my calendar was populated with interviews. I had visions of eager potential legal assistants all a-Twitter at the thought of a rewarding career helping me make money. My plans turned to crap almost immediately. The interviewing process was torture, just like when I'd been on the other side of the table. I was uncomfortable, and the interviewees were uncomfortable. I learned nothing during the excruciating hour I had to spend with each of those poor people that would enable me to decide that one of them was more meritorious than the next. One guy was obviously unqualified. One young lady was overqualified. The rest were all equally personable and skilled. Trying to rank them by minuscule gradations in education or experience was a fool's errand, no more likely to produce the best employee than pulling numbers from a hat. The whole merit thing was a lot tougher than I thought it would be. I began to doubt if merit even existed. Perhaps I'd been sucked into a fad like learning styles or Myers-Briggs type indicators. My world was crumbling. I consulted with my wife. She stated matter-of-factly that hiring is always that way. Except for a couple of outliers, applicants for jobs are all qualified, so you pick someone you like and who you think you can sit next to for 8 hours a day. She accused me of overthinking and told me to just pick someone. But I was not giving up on merit so easily. I called references and fielded follow-up questions. I made a chart, and despite how horrible the first interviews were, even considered a second round. The references all checked out. The interviewees sent me thank you notes and follow-up questions, all the things I had done after the interviews I went through before not being hired. A week passed, and I still hadn't decided. Once again, my wife came to the rescue. She said, "If you are really struggling with this, our friend Emma is looking for work. She doesn't have legal experience, but she has a college degree. Why don't you hire her?" I had always liked Emma. The next day I called Emma and asked if she would like to be a legal assistant. She said, "Sure." I hired Emma, and she was an excellent legal assistant for the next 6 years. She got the job because she knew a guy. The guy was me. My foray into merit-based hiring has produced no better results on the employer side than it had when on the employee side. None of the applicants got the job. I didn't get an employee. I had a lot of legal assistants in the years that followed, none of whom went through an interview process. I learned to hire college graduates. It wasn't that college had taught them anything about being a legal assistant, but my office dealt with large American bureaucracies, courts, government agencies, hospitals, insurance companies, and many more. Anyone who has graduated college has managed to get into and out of a giant educational bureaucracy. That was the experience I needed. I never returned to interviewing. I gave up thinking that my successes were due to merit or that I could recognize merit in others. There are many qualities I have had to struggle through life without. I have no common sense, no intuition, no sense of direction, and very little artistic taste. Reluctantly, I have added merit to the list. Thanks for listening. I'm Chris Kepler, and I hope you enjoyed listening to these stories as much as I enjoyed narrating them. I'd love for more people to hear these wonderful stories, so please share and tell your friends.